The Haunting Shadows of Qingyang Lake. Tales of mysterious fog, drowned spirits, and unexplained phenomena. This story happened to my parents when they had just gotten married not long ago. They worked in the county town and would ride a motorcycle to the countryside to visit my grandparents for dinner every weekend when they had time. On the way to the countryside, they had to pass through a place called Qingyang Lake. My mom said Qingyang Lake had beautiful scenery, but it also made her feel inexplicably frightened because several people drowned in the lake every year. Yet it was the only way home, so they had to go through there each time. That time, my parents, as usual, went to have dinner at my grandparents' on the weekend. "Wife, you need to eat more and keep yourself healthy, so you can give birth to a chubby grandson for me." At that time, I wasn't born yet, so my grandmother would always bring up the topic of having a grandson soon. After the meal, my parents would stay to chat with my grandparents. Take it slow on the road, pay attention to safety. They would only allow my parents to leave when it got dark. "All right, you two, come inside quickly." Each time, they would be escorted to the front gate, perhaps because they were reluctant to let them go. That day, my parents left the village on a motorcycle. Take it slow. Follow the road along Qingyang Lake back home. I assure you of my skills. One moment, they were chatting and laughing, and the next, things changed. When my mom recounted the story, she said it was as if the fog suddenly appeared before them. It was a thick fog, so dense that they couldn't see the road under their feet. How did such a thick fog suddenly appear? It wasn't there a moment ago. The sudden thick fog made my parents extremely nervous because it was unusual, and coupled with the mysterious incidents that often happened at Qingyang Lake, it heightened their anxiety. "I'm scared. Please accelerate and move forward." Fearing, my mom asked my dad to speed up and get out of there quickly. The road is not visible at all. It's too dangerous to ride fast. However, the fog was too dense. Even though my dad was afraid of the dangers of riding forward hastily, he was also afraid of lingering in the same place. "But we can't stay here forever. Let's move forward slowly. Be cautious and ride forward for about 2 or 3 minutes." Suddenly, 2 beams of light appeared from the side. A truck was coming from a distance. The strong lights blinded my parents. "Hey, what are you two doing? Why are you blocking the road?" The driver pulled the truck to a stop, rolled down the window, and scolded my parents. "Are you trying to commit suicide? Why did you suddenly appear in front of me?" My dad was angry and wanted to ask the driver how he was driving when suddenly the fog dispersed. "Wait a moment. I think something is wrong." While the passengers in the car were massaging their aching heads, they questioned the driver about his reckless driving. What happened, however, when the passengers looked forward, they all shut their mouths and showed fearful expressions. "Don't speak. Close your eyes." My dad, like the other passengers, appeared frightened. He held my mom close, asking her to close her eyes and not look ahead. My dad took a look and was startled. The front of their motorcycle was facing Qingyang Lake. If they had moved a bit forward, they would have plunged into the lake. The appearance of the truck saved my parents' lives. The truck driver also realized that something was strange with my parents' behavior. After a while, he left, leaving my parents stunned for a long time, only recovering from the shock after some time. After that incident, my parents reduced their visits to my grandmother's house, and they no longer dared to ride a motorcycle, opting for a minibus instead. According to my mom, it might be that she attracted those strange occurrences. In one autumn, my parents took a minibus to my grandmother's house. It's dark so early now. It's only a few o'clock. They took the last bus, and when it arrived near Qingyang Lake, it was already around 6 o'clock and the sky had darkened. As they were chatting, the bus suddenly stopped, catching everyone inside off guard, causing many to bump their heads. What's happening with the driving? Can't you drive properly? Are you okay? What happened with the driving? The passengers were both rubbing their sore spots and questioning the driver about his driving. What's going on, however, when the passengers looked forward, they all fell silent and showed expressions of fear. Don't talk. Close your eyes. Like the other passengers, my dad was frightened. He held my mom close, asking her to close her eyes and not look ahead. Out of curiosity, my mom opened her eyes to take a peek. All the passengers in the car lowered their heads or closed their eyes. A wet child walked past my mom. Because it was night, my mom said she couldn't see the child's appearance clearly, but she could see that the child's clothes were wet. Drip, drip, dripping with water. The boy walked to the front of the bus. The driver opened the door, and the child got on the bus. My mom couldn't help but take another look. The child appeared to be around 10 years old, like someone just pulled out of the water, still dripping wet. The passengers in the car all lived nearby, and it seemed they knew what was happening. They all kept their heads down, lying there without making a sound. When the child passed by my mom, she was also afraid. She leaned into my dad's arms, saying that the child exuded a coldness as it walked past her. The child sat in the last row of seats. There was no movement in the carriage, only the sound of water dripping from the child. Drip, my mom said it was the scariest sound she had ever heard. Every drop tightened her heart. The driver started the bus and stopped at a nearby village. The child got off the bus. My dad and mom looked out the window. When the child walked towards the village, it slowly disappeared. I was so scared. Is that child? Only then did my mom breathe a sigh of relief and ask my dad if that child was a human being. Phew, I didn't expect us to encounter this. Do you know what happened? My dad also relaxed, breathed a sigh of relief, and leaned back in his seat. That child is quite pitiful. My mom sensed that my dad knew something about the child and asked him what happened. My dad explained that everyone in the neighborhood knew about the child. He lived in the village they passed by, and because it was close to Qingyang Lake, the village children would swim in the lake every day. 3 years ago, that day, the child and 2 older children from the village went swimming in Qingyang Lake. Those 2 older kids dared to venture into deep waters. Don't go further in, it's not deep here. Come over. The child was more cautious, staying in the shallow water. Oh, it's not deep here at all. Come over. Those 2 kids teased him for being afraid and not going into the deeper water. There are drownings here every year. You too should come back. The child signaled them to come back from the shallow water, explaining that there were deep holes, and people drowned there every year. All right, let's scare him by pretending it's shallow. We'll tread water and make him believe it's shallow. The 2 older kids thought it would be fun to scare the child, so they pretended to tread water, making it seem like they were in a shallow area. We're not lying. It's not even chest deep. Come over. That's right. Come over quickly. To avoid being laughed at, the child bravely waded into the deeper water. As soon as he took a few steps, his feet slipped, and he slid into a deep hole underwater. The child didn't swim well, and with no preparation for the deep water, he choked on a few mouthfuls of water and sank. Seeing that they had made a big mistake, the 2 kids tried to rescue him but couldn't bring him up. The 2 kids panicked, ran to the shore, and called for help. But it was too late. The child drowned. Those 2 kids are despicable. My dad vividly described the story of the child to my mom. The 2 kids who caused the child's death ran away in fear. After the child drowned, people occasionally saw a wet child by the lake, and there were rumors that it was the drowned child returning home. Regarding Qingyang Lake, another memorable incident involved 2 old men fishing by the lake. Old Man Lai suddenly noticed something floating in the lake. Old Liu, take a look at what's floating in the lake. Why does it look like a person to me? He called over his fishing companion, Old Man Liu, to take a look into the lake with him. They saw something black floating in the lake. It does look like a person. The shape is very much like a person, and there seem to be about 10 of them. I'll go take a look. Old Man Liu thought it might be people who had drowned in the lake and wanted to go in and check. I'll go take a look. Old Liu also thought that it might be someone who drowned in the lake, so he wanted to go into the water to check. Wait a moment. I feel something's not right about this. Let's observe before making a decision. Old Lai stopped him. He thought it was impossible for so many people to drown in the lake at once, and it was also unlikely that they would all float up suddenly. It was better to see clearly before taking any action. The two old men stood on the shore, and sure enough, after a short while, those human shapes disappeared. The two old men looked at each other, unable to understand what had happened. It wasn't until the next day's news report that two vehicles collided, and one of the buses went out of control, crashing into Qingyang Lake. 11 passengers on the bus drowned. Afterward, Qingyang Lake was protected. It became a reserve drinking water source, fenced with wire mesh to prevent swimming and fishing. The eerie stories about Qingyang Lake gradually diminished.